She's, I didn't hear anything. Should we ask to be connected? What's that? Should we ask to call? I don't know, I just We're good? Okay. It is 6 o'clock, so we will call the meeting to order. Our district mission: together we engage, educate, and empower all learners, bridging their passions to pathways to create successful futures and positively contribute to our local and global communities. Will you do roll call, please?
Yes. Lori Blargen.
Here.
Ian McDonald.
Here.
Matt Pickle.
Here.
Lacey Oster.
Here.
Bruce Blargen.
Here.
Cherie Link. Marge Belil.
Here.
Looking at our agenda moving forward, is there we needed to make a little alter to the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda tonight?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Shannon, did something have to be changed in that?
Yeah, so I put in front
Sorry.
of each of you just an updated version of the handbook verbiage underneath my update letter B. We actually added a letter B on this page. So what's linked to the agenda is this handbook edit, but only with letter A in blue.
Okay.
I would like to update my edit with this version that's A and B. That make sense?
So the motion needs to include it to reflect that change.
Mm-hmm. Please.
So is there a motion to approve the agenda with Shannon's suggestion for change?
Who will make that motion?
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yeah.
Okay, moving on, public comment. I did not receive any requests for public comment. Anybody here for public comment? Did you receive any? Okay, we'll keep going then. So looking for our Spartan Spotlight, we have Amber Freeze here to present. Welcome, thank you for coming.
We're all just clumped up in We have some pictures to show.
Sorry, I was linking that new updated. All right, let's get you guys.
So while Alicia's doing that, thank you for inviting us here. We did have a really successful project, and I didn't want to be the only one to share it with you, so I invited Heidi Olson, who I worked on the project with, and then two students who we will meet shortly here. As many of you know, I moved to the middle school this year into a new position, and it's going great so far. I love to do projects and all the crafty things, so I'm just rolling with it, and this was one of them. I had a class of 8th graders, and I want to make sure to do some sort of, cooking and sewing with every single grade level that comes through. And so came across this, monster project that I thought, what a wonderful opportunity to take advantage of all of our buildings on one campus, which is a pretty neat thing that Somerset has. And so I called up Heidi and said, hey, would you work with us? And she said, absolutely. So it started by, I went down to the elementary and met with the kindergarten class and, talked about monsters, read a fun book, all, super funny and lighthearted monster things. And then I left different monster templates with the students. And they got to choose which shape monster they wanted to then design. And that was their goal. And I don't know, Heidi wants to talk a little bit about how that process went in her room.
I just brought up one of the books that she had read and showed the different pictures of the monsters to the kids, and we talked about the different parts. Some had tails, some had teeth, some had polka dots, some had crazy hair, and all this good stuff. So then, as we did the monster, I didn't just let them just go free. We talked about each part. What would you like for eyes? Would you like one eye? Would you like two eyes? Would you like three eyes? And then we talked about the mouth and adding teeth and what their favorite colors were, and then if they wanted to add a tail or whatever they wanted to add. They kind of went piece by piece, and then they got to color it. And I was kind of worried at first looking at it, I'm like, how are these kids gonna replicate all these different colors and shapes and things on there? But I handed it over to Amber, and she made magic happen. So it was definitely magical.
Yeah, so then I brought them back to the 8th graders, and if you want to go to the next slide, here's an example of their papers, their designs that they gave. And at first, I would say, the 8th graders were like, how are we going to do this? I don't know how to sew. And so it was a big confidence booster by the end of this project for the 8th graders. And I have to say that I was just so proud of them. The work that they did, they took it very seriously. They really truly wanted their kindergartner partner to like it. And so if you just want to click through a couple here, I was just shocked at the detail that they put into it. And so once these were done, we packaged them up, and it was time then to deliver them to the kindergartners, and that would be the next slide. And so we all walked over to the elementary and sat with the kindergartners, and they got to open them, and it was just a really neat experience. So if you want to click through a couple of these, this is just all of the students in the class, and again, I know you have this on the agenda, so take some time to look at the details. Just really proud of them. And so I brought 2 students with Amelia and Ruby. Come on up, step up. Okay? All right, you want to give Ruby her monster, and you want to show them, and you can hold the paper, Amelia. Okay, show everyone. Okay, Ruby, do you want to tell them what is your favorite part about your monster? You love sleeping with your monster. Oh, love that. And Amelia, what was your favorite part about this project?
My favorite part was probably when we went to deliver them to Miss Olson's room, and when they all got them and opened them out of their bag, they all were speechless and were just looking at them.
Yeah, great. So thank you so much. If you want to sit down, you can. Good job. Okay, good job. I just thought it was great or important to have the students here to show too. And Ruby may be the youngest presenter at a board meeting yet, maybe. She get that award. But as Heidi and I reflected, it was super successful to bring these monsters to life for the students. And of course, we would love to, grow. How can we make this bigger and better? And one idea I thought of, incorporating the high school writing classes so that they could create a story and then give to the kindergartners as well.
And I thought one of the things that we spend a lot of time doing in kindergarten is talking about characters and how you describe and words used to describe them, and using words to describe their monsters. But after she had told me about the high school project idea that she had, I thought it would be kind of fun too, after their monsters come back, to give them a name, ask them their favorite color, maybe their favorite place to hang out, and get some details, and maybe that is what could be used to go into the story that possible high schoolers do. So
Yes.
just extending it more.
We would love to extend it, because again, it is so, we have such a unique campus where everyone was on, one grounds together, and so we want to take advantage of that. So, thank you for having us.
Great, thank you for coming.
Yeah.
You make
Yeah.
such a good point. Thank you, Ruby. Thank you, Amelia. Okay, moving on to our buildings and grounds. Tim, you're up.
Awesome.
I think actually.
Oh, sorry.
You're
good. I
Oh,
don't have
sorry,
to follow
Jared, you're up.
children.
I skipped one. Thanks, Joe. You're on deck, Tim. Jared, you're up.
Right, we're having us.
Bye, thank you for
Thanks for
coming.
coming.
All right, so I'm Jared Kerber, School Resource Officer. I just want to start off by saying thanks for allowing me to be here. I've enjoyed the relationship, strong relationship that I think the police department has been able to build, or it has built, with the school district. I put a little 2-sheet packet in front of everyone that I'll go through in a few minutes. Those are just stats for my actual calls for service that I've been involved with at all 3 schools. One of the things that's not documented on there is like my time where I've focused my efforts on like before and after school traffic, or when I've just walked around the schools, or joining in with gym class. Like that's one thing that's not documented there. So there's a lot that I have been a part of, but it was hard to take out like a notebook and document every single time I did something small like that. One of the focal points has been parent pickup after school and before school, especially at the elementary school. So I've tried to focus efforts there out of all 3 schools. One of my favorite things that I've been a part of is just walking through the elementary school. I feel like I'm like a superhero when I walk through there. If I want to smile, I go there because the kids just are so excited to see a police officer. It just brings joy to me seeing them all happy and smile. Besides all those calls for service, I recently have been a part of the ALICE training put on at all 3 schools. So that's alert, lockdown, inform, counter, and evacuate. Most likely going to be attending a training for that in June, I believe. Personally, I'm trained in alert. It's a different type of active shooter training. All Somerset officers, I believe, are trained in that. I was recently a part of a St. Croix County SART Healthy Relationships presentation. I took part in coaching an 8th grade gym class on the police officer physical fitness. There's a set of exercise standards that we have to meet to be able to get into the academy and then exit the academy. A few of those things are push-ups, sit-ups, 1.5 mile run, 300-meter run, and I actually ran against Mr. Fuller, and I beat him, so that was fun. I was part of some mock interviews at the middle school, coloring activities at the elementary school, and many other different events I don't have listed on the sheet. Besides the elementary school, my favorite involvement has been through gym activities, like playing Spartan ball. Just any gym activity, I feel like that's the best way to engage with students and kind of bridge the gap between law enforcement and student. It kind of removes the officer from the uniform and the badge and shows that we're just a normal person as well. So stats, elementary school, there's been 10 total calls for service. I have them listed on there what they've been for. The middle school, 12 total. I wrote on here juvenile complaints, so that's a general term for our system. We have to label it as a juvenile complaint. So I put, like if you look under the high school section, there's 39 total calls for service at the high school. So juvenile complaints encompassed habitual truancy, tobacco on school grounds, threat complaints, sexual assaults, altercations, mental health, explicit photos being spread through the school, etc. So if anybody has any questions, I can do my best to answer those.
Questions, comments?
Is the elementary school or the pickup, you say you spend a lot of your time doing that, is that improved at all, or is that any different, is that better?
So, there's been times where I've spent, you know, several days in a row. It's when we're there, people kind of put on their angel hats. And, you know, they follow the rules for the most part, they drive where they're supposed to. So then I'll go back to, let's say, the intersection of Belial and Sunrise, which is also another problem area, for a week, and then Pam, the principal at the elementary school, will say, hey, can you come back here again? You know, we're kind of having issues. So it's a reoccurring thing where I try to be there, I'm there for a day or two, and then another area I'm requested to go to, so I have to go to that area, and then when I'm gone from the one, it's, you know, it's a revolving door.
Have you talked through any of your thoughts with any of the principals of what you see when you're,
I think
it could be more efficient possibly?
I think one of the issues now is there's the areas where there's rows, right? And you're supposed to come all the way around and then park. One of the issues is that people cut in between those rows, and they also don't line up as far as they can. There's a sign that says like park here, and then everyone's supposed to line in behind them. So the issue is that people are waiting outside the school because they're right next to where their kids can see them. So they stop there and create a much bigger backup onto Spartan Drive. So just maybe having an extra personnel or an extra person that can instruct people, you know, you have to keep moving. And I mean, if it came to it, just having a person at each one of those little sections to not allow them to go there and create a backup. So those are two different kind of options I've thought of.
Yeah, I was just, using you as some resource in any of those times that, as I see, let's try something new. That's a big complaint we all get.
Yeah.
But thanks for sitting out there.
At the beginning of the school year, before there was all the snow, I would try to park my squad car on the side of the road right near the elementary school entrance, so that people saw, okay, here's the squad car. Maybe it would help people to, you know, do what they're supposed to. And then I would try to walk over to the elementary school, so I have my squad car there and then me actually at the school. But right now we have gigantic mounds of snow, so can't really do that. So,
Great. Thank you, Jeremy.
yep. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Now you're up.
Did it work?
I think this is what we're gonna get.
Okay. Seem to have some difficulties with the slides, so bear with us. President Oster, board members, thank you for allowing me to speak. This will be a little quicker than the last one I had presented. I'm just going to go over the progress from the items that I had kind of keystoned last time, and then just an overview of how my budget is laid out, and then plans for the future. So currently there were three main initiatives that I wanted to kind of spearhead, and these initiatives are kind of industry standards, kind of best practices in the industry. Preventative maintenance, I haven't progressed as far as I'd hoped. Still in progress. Equipment has been tagged. It's currently being loaded into the new software, which is Asset Manager. It is kind of an updated version of School Dudes that everyone is using, but has a better preventative maintenance component to it. So that information's getting placed into that. We even though the program hasn't gone live to the general public, we still use it internally now, kind of to beta test it. We've been doing quarterly maintenance, things like that, just to keep up with things. Benchmarking was another thing that I had hoped to kind of get implemented here, and that actually through our building automation system, we've been able to see some savings. We've had equipment that was running 24/7. We were able to catch that through trending on our building automation. Same with some of the things at the middle school. We've rooftop unit which has 2 different staging for cooling. A bigger stage and a smaller stage. The way it was initially set up, the bigger stage went on first, where that smaller one should have come on first, and then as demand picks up, the larger one goes on. So we were spending a little more energy than we should have on those kind of shoulder days where it's tempered out and doesn't need the full cooling. All of that kind of equates to dollar savings for utilities and things like that. Workplace safety, we're still in the process of moving a lot of our hard copy of chemicals and such, our SDS sheets, into onto laptops where it's more accessible. If you want to go ahead and turn. Next thing was budget. A lot of kind of interest in the budget. So I wanted to point out, not exactly what the budget is, but how it breaks down. So as you can see, the contracted services and utilities take up a large chunk of the budget. There is a small amount left. Typically, that amount would do things like projects towards spring, once we know what that actually is. But some of those other unforeseen expenses, like snow, this year has been incredible. And just kind of a side note, our contractor, All Excavating, has done a fantastic job this year of removing the historic amounts of snow that we've had. So some of those things will squeeze that 17%, which does not allow for some of the projects that I know principals like to see and things like that. So there are also some other forecasted increases we can kind of predict, like labor and costs of materials and things like that has seen a big jump. Something as simple as fertilizer that we use. There was almost a 3 or 4-fold increase in fertilizer over the summer. Even with all of that, we'll still continue to work within our budget allocated this year, so we're not looking for any additional allocation through 23-24, but just know that that 17% is being squeezed, but we'll still work within that. So looking ahead, still continue on those 3 initiatives, kind of the industry standards, implementing them here. So getting everything switched over to Asset Manager, and then that software going live so that people can do work orders, things like that through it. Continue to monitor our energy savings. Look for, there's still a lot of, after construction, a lot of things that are quite set up as they should, not as efficient as they should, and looking at those kind of efficiencies. Also looking at the potential of Energy Star ratings for the buildings. It's kind of a one number that people can look at and say, yep, we are using taxpayers' dollars at the most efficient that we can. Possibly looking at developing a safety committee. I've had the opportunity to now cycle through all 3 buildings, and as I've done that, I've noticed some issues with things either staff are doing or that just isn't something that we should probably do. Beyond kind of finishing those 3 items, I would like to spend the next year or so looking at our internal staff, so the maintenance staff's time, just kind of a labor analysis. Currently, what I'm seeing is we are doing a lot of tasks that skilled labor shouldn't be doing. So a lot of shoveling snow, a lot of setups, a lot of things like that, it's kind of a domino effect where if we're doing that, then there are things that have to get done. So we're calling a contractor to do that. So that's a higher wage. So kind of right sizing what we are doing as an internal staff for maintenance. And then just continue to look for operational efficiencies and ways to reduce that operating cost. Some of it has been partnering kind of creatively, science department in the high schools looking at perhaps doing no-grow fescues on some of the grass where you've got prairie grass or prairie that you won't mow. So that'll save us some operating costs. The horticulture department wants to do a flower garden around some of the tougher areas where it is to mow, and that'll reduce our costs. And then I can stand for questions. It's a little quicker than last time.
I got two.
Okay.
Is there plans to push snow back or move any of those piles, especially going into the elementary?
Yep, so we've already, with the last few big snow events, have removed a lot of the snow and pushed it back. So with that last 13, 14 inches, we'll continue to move those, opening up kind of drive lanes and also intersections. Waiting for the weather to be a little warmer this week. So internally we'll move some, but we'll also, there's currently a pile in the bus loop at the middle school that we'll move out. So, yep, that is.
And the second one is with that stop sign, so it kind of goes back to the elementary.
Sure.
So stop sign at the bus entrance, is there talk or has there been any discussion about moving that to the actual parking lot entrance? I've dropped my kids off a couple times the last few weeks, and I think if that stop sign was at the actual parking lot entrance, that will allow the traffic to continually flow instead of just backing up. I feel like that stop sign at the bus loop, it spaces all that traffic coming from the meadows.
Sure.
Just enough where nobody can ever move. Have you looked at that?
So initially we set out the stop signs just to help with the flow of traffic, help with slowing down the flow of traffic. So some of those ramifications where it's back up, we can certainly look at that and see if another location will help remedy that. Absolutely.
Yeah, I feel like a three-way stop at that, the parking lot, that parent drop-off, parking lot entrance, I think that would alleviate some of that backup.
Yeah,
They
yep.
just can't move,
Yep, no, I've been in that a few times, trying to get from one building to the next. So, yep, we can absolutely look at that.
Thank you.
We all saw in that Alice training, it sounded like there's some PA system issues at all three of the schools.
Yep.
No, I was gonna say, is that something you're addressing then, or we're gonna look at hiring our electrician who did the work out at those schools? I mean, they shouldn't be failing.
Yep, so we've had ongoing issues with all three buildings on our PA and fire system, security system. Right now, the middle school and the elementary, when you do announcements, it will go into trouble. Sarah can.
Every morning after the.
Every morning. So announcements can be made, you have to silence the trouble. We've had Market & Johnson and multiple companies come out. They were just out over Christmas vacation. We had a third independent contractor, electrician, look at those. They've come up with some ideas on correcting those issues. But yeah, it has been a long-standing issue that should be corrected. And I think going forward, we've got a game plan. The high school, a different beast. So roughly September, they reworked that entire system. It had worked flawlessly until Christmas break. The last announcements they made during Christmas break, there was a loud squeal, and that went down. We did find out we could make announcements over the phone. Any phone within the school, it is a 30-second announcement, and then it cuts out. You can call back and do it that way. That contractor will be back this Wednesday to look at that system. We believe it is a mic issue, so there's a standing mic at the office that they use for announcements.
Who's the contractor?
For which one? There's, each one is different. The high school is Legacy. The elementary is GN, and the middle school is FireNet.
Okay. Well, all right.
Yeah, I share any frustration you might have.
I just, when you saw it in all three, I just completely would.
Yeah, and so the elementary and the middle school are similar systems. The high school is a totally separate system. Yes, as part of the construction.
Now, right? Someone just had Bluetooth speakers.
Yes, I think they were going to go with megaphones.
Right. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? Going once, going twice? Perfect, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ted.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our superintendent update.
Awesome. We've had great presenters to kick off the meeting today,
Yeah.
so well done, everyone. So I have kind of a hodgepodge of things here for my report. So I will start with update on sick bank procedures. I think in December, Lori had asked for some clarification of kind of where we're at with how sick banks work. So I did some research, not only in our district, but just districts around us as well, just to find out what are people doing, what are some of the procedures people use. So my understanding in district is that some guidelines were put in place in 16-17 to kind of move away from sort of the unlimited days that could be contributed to kind of start everyone with the same foundation, which is where the number 10 came in. And then analyzing individual situations, and if the need is to have more than 10, then that can certainly happen. I know we've done that even in the time that I've been here, looking at each employee, every situation. There's also a lot of kind of background things that go into that with what are the amount of sick days that employees currently have, looking at doctor's notes, all kinds of things, just trying to make a good decision of how do we support the employee, but also making sure that inadvertently we don't have employees kind of emptying out their sick bank, so trying to put a little protection kind of there on both sides. In doing my research kind of outside the district, we are one of the few districts that still offer this. Many districts don't offer this opportunity anymore. Part of that is because many districts have a sick day payout, and for the most part we don't, so they didn't want to kind of deal with any of that with tax impact and any of those kinds of things. So on one hand, I'm thankful that we still have this, although on kind of a separate note, I will be bringing some recommendations and ideas forward regarding some sick bank pieces that we'll kind of talk about a different time, or sick day pieces, excuse me. So really kind of the process is, and this is outlined in our handbook, which has not changed. There's a folder in class link that an employee would click on, and kind of outlines for them the process if they would like to request a sick bank for someone. Actually, we just had another request today. So it's outlined pretty clearly there in terms of what a staff member would have to do to request a sick bank on behalf of someone else. We gather lots of information kind of internally and then connect with that staff member, get some more information, and then go from there. So I don't know if you had any other specific questions. That's what I was able to kind of learn in terms of some of the history. Obviously that was kind of in place when I got here, but
So it sounds like you're saying that there is not necessarily a 10-day limit? It's
Correct.
just that 10 days is,
a starting point.
okay.
And then if we would need to add more, which we've done, then we work with that employee individually and kind of work through that scenario. Yep.
So really beyond 10 days is just more so getting a little bit more information.
Yep.
And seeing if
Yep.
that's appropriate or checking history, that kind of stuff.
Questions on that? Okay. In front of you, and I think Alicia now added it as well, but this is kind of the most immediate update that we'd like to make to the handbook to be able to support support staff with inclement weather days. So if you see in front of you, we have, or I have, kind of the recommendation I would like to make, at least to get us through this year. We may end up bringing something forward later, but for now, we think this allows us some nice flexibility with support staff. If we do end up with some additional inclement weather days, to try to support that unpaid time off. So as mentioned earlier, the last time I brought this up, support staff can substitute a personal day for an inclement weather day to kind of make up for those lost wages. What I added in letter B in front of you is also the ability to make up that time with some alternative work assignments that would need to be pre-approved by the district administrator. So we have some additional professional development days coming up, so there would be some opportunities to make up some of those hours, potentially coming in before their scheduled time or staying later on a given day to make up some of that time as well. So really the intent is just to provide some additional flexibility. We probably aren't going to be able to put every possible scenario in the handbook, but this at least allows, you know, some additional ways that we can help support, especially in a year like this year where we have more than we have in many, many years, and the winter's kind of just beginning. So bringing that today just to at least have you take a look at it. You know, the idea is we would bring it back next meeting for, you know, kind of final approval. Happy to answer any questions that you have. I know there's a couple, and I think Bruce, you had brought this up too, you know, later in the school year, you know, what does this look like if we end up forgiving days and things like that. So, you know, we worked with some other schools to kind of see what are some other things that they have in place. You know, so potentially it would be returning back some personal days or kind of working with individual employees to figure out kind of how we manage that, because we've kind of found that every support staff navigates these days a little bit different way. So kind of looking at each one individually, if we got to that point, to kind of navigate how we would figure that out. So we at least figure for the time being, this provides us some flexibility to be able to navigate the rest of the year. All right. No questions?
I have
Oh,
a
question.
question,
Yep.
but it's about a different section of it. The supervisory support staff, at the end of it, it says the employee will receive 1 additional day of vacation for each forgiven day.
Mhm.
Is that prorated? So if we have like a half day or a 2-hour delay?
Yeah, we'd figure it out based off of, yep,
Thank you.
yep. Any other questions? I'll keep moving here. So virtual learning days, just really want to give more of an update. So last week for our high school and middle school, we had, I would say, our first official virtual learning day, since for those 2 buildings, we have run out of any more wiggle room in terms of our required instructional hours. So our staff and students did a great job the day before, kind of working through any technology, making sure Google Meets worked, cameras worked, microphones worked, buildings tried to problem solve that the very best that they could heading into the next day. Getting some information back from staff, from families, from students. Overall, people reporting that it went really well. You know, a couple kinks that we needed to work out with some connectability and a few things like that. But I attached here as well the expectations that we sent home to parents and students. It's now went out in the scoop. They received it actually the day before the virtual day as well. That will be the plan for middle high school moving forward. We still have about 4 days left for our elementary school before we need to really kind of start thinking about elementary virtual learning. We're really hoping to avoid that for a lot of reasons. And you know, we'll just kind of play that by ear if we get to that point. But the day of our last inclement weather day, our elementary staff were very busy. I attended their hour-long Google staff meeting in the morning that Pam led, and they had team meetings. They were working on going through curriculum, going through math standards. So our elementary staff wasn't just kind of home kicking up their feet. There was a lot going on there too. It just looked a little bit different than our middle school, high school staff who were working with kids that day. So really just more informational. You know, I've got my fingers crossed. We don't have to worry about any more inclement weather days, but we'll see how that goes. But we have an admin meeting tomorrow. We're going to do a little report out from each building as well and just kind of talk through anything else that came up to see if we need to tighten up anything else moving forward. But overall, I can't shout out enough our students, our families, and our staff for putting that together in fairly quick order. I myself was even a little bit surprised the way that the weather ended up. I didn't really think we would have a snow day on Wednesday, thinking maybe a 2-hour late, but the way things ended up, it is what it is, so I was thankful that we had something in place, so. Any questions about that?
Go ahead. I had a question about the, how do the posted office hours work? Can you tell us more about that?
I bet maybe my principal can.
Sure.
Yeah. Put you on the spot, Sarah.
So, no, totally fine. So each teacher has a Google Classroom, and so within that classroom is always a Google Meet link that they can go live with kids as they're working. And so, many teachers communicated, just in case this is when it will be, or they posted them within their Google Classroom of, here's when I will be online waiting if you have questions. With the caveat that if you can't make it at that time, then you can email me and we can go back and forth that way, or we can set up another meet as well. So they're posted. Some grade levels sent it like a mass email to all the kids, but posting it there was easiest. Every advisory started the day in a Google Meet, so that was useful. What we found was that kids would like some more afternoon office hours as well. Most of our office hours were scheduled in the morning. So, you know, if we do that again, we'll look at that differently. But they were spread out enough so that if they had a question on social studies and on ELA, on English, they could talk to both teachers. So that was just communicated out. And
So each teacher set their own?
yeah, the teams, they set them as a grade level just to make sure there wasn't the overlap. And then kids had access to them. So I know, like, so my own had a meeting with her school counselor at the high school at one point, and they had just gone back and forth through email to get it set up.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Well, I'd like to say, having kids in elementary and middle school, kudos to middle school. I felt like, from a parent perspective, it wasn't just okay, quick log in and I'm off. Like, I felt it actually, it was a beneficial day of learning. And as a parent at home watching, like, what are you doing? I will say thank you for that. I think one of my concerns is I completely get that elementary doesn't have as many days as middle school, but I also recognize that elementary, middle school, and high school the teachers are all on the same contract as far as days. So I feel like I guess one of the first things that come to my mind is a little bit is like, if they don't need as many days, we schedule those calendar days for them, but then to say some have school and some don't, I don't know, for some reason that doesn't, so is that day then for the elementary, is it more than becoming PD for those elementary teachers? And then my mind goes to, well, then are those PD days for elementary needed in the future? Because those elementary kids need those days too, and even though they might not, I feel like, what are we saying then at the beginning of the year if we're saying, well, that we're scheduling the same amount of days for elementary, middle, and high school, but if we have snow days, only middle and high school need to make up. I don't know if that's, you're requiring middle school and high school, and I get that they have that certain amount of days, but then I feel like there's a different precedence for elementary when they still need that instruction too.
Sure. So I think moving forward, the idea is that elementary staff will be communicating with families through Seesaw with some optional activities. The hard part is our elementary students don't have devices.
Right.
So then we kind of work through that, right? So I would say, yes, it was a combination of internal professional development. So our elementary school currently, as you know, is adopting a new literacy curriculum. So most of our teams spent the significant amount of their time working through that, right? We just had a trainer come in and work through math standards, so they were kind of going through that, right? So it may be a case that currently right now that we kind of take it day by day, depending on, right? If we have one more day, if we have 7 more days, day 7 might look very different than what we did last week, just kind of taking it bit by bit. But none of it's ideal, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
no, and I'd rather play it safe. I mean,
Yeah.
I think the decisions you've made as far as snow days and things, I'd rather play it safe. I just kind of looking at the whole gamut, not just middle school and high school.
Yep.
Or looking ahead, have we looked at any of those PD days as turning over to maybe student contact days?
So
if
we
we're
have.
using some of these snow days for essentially kind of PD for elementary, has that ever been discussed, I guess?
Yep, so we've talked about it already. Knowing the value of those PD days, we are trying to make that a last option if we possibly can. Is it on the list of things we may have to do? Yep, for sure. So I would say anything is kind of in play right now, given the fact that it's only January 9th. We may have to get really creative about how we navigate any other days moving forward, knowing that we don't want to just say, well, elementary, we have 5 days that you don't need stuff, right?
That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah,
Like,
so I
okay,
think-
it's important for middle school and high school,
Yep.
but not elementary.
Yeah, so I think moving forward, you will see some things, parents will see some things come through Seesaw as some optional activities. Also trying to be mindful of the fact that, parents might not be home to support. I know we had one family kind of reach out and say, we want our kids to do all this work, but we've got multiple kids at home and the high schoolers are watching the elementary kids and, trying to kind of balance kind of all of that. So I think last week was kind of a good trial run because we found some things that we know we want to tighten up and just, get better if we can, but, we'll have to kind of see day by day at this point, so. Yeah, but good feedback, because we'll keep talking about all these things of how do we just make the best out of a situation that we know isn't ideal for
Right.
student learning.
Well, and when I say the PD days, I don't say that they're not valuable.
Yeah.
But if we're making up those PD days almost in the virtual days, because I
Mhm.
think for teachers, PD days virtual can be very effective because they have the technology, usually they're able to do that. So if they're doing almost that PD day virtual, then are you able to make some of those?
Yep.
Is that an option, I
Yep.
guess?
Yep. All good things to talk about and consider, for sure. Any other questions about, what am I on, letter C? Okay. So letter D is our 23-24 proposed open enrollment chart. So this is a document that comes before the board every January. I like to kind of put a few things out in front here that, this document really is created from DPI out of trying to set some parameters and guidelines primarily for students with disabilities. Very few schools use this as a guideline for either denying, frankly, students that are not supported by IEPs. DPI, kind of puts out in their information that they don't want schools necessarily using this for staffing. It doesn't define how many sections we're going to have next year. The most valuable part of this is kind of that middle part where it says special ed and then next to it available seats. This is the document that we will reference, all of next school year if we need to kind of talk about open enrollment, either accepting or potentially denying. We can start with any student, but very specifically if we have room for students supported by IEPs. So this is not a Somerset unique document. I actually had schools in our conference send me the documents that they use just because I've always kind of wondered, like, is this just what everybody uses? And literally every document sent to me looks exactly like this because this is the one that DPI puts out. Abby in particular does a lot of work for this document behind the scenes, lots of formulas, lots of information that goes into creating these guidelines, and then these are what we will use in 23-24 if we need to come before the board and have some of those conversations. So again, I just want to stress, like, this is not staffing, it's not section size, it's not anything really other than a starting point for accepting or denying open enrollment for all students, and then very specific guidelines for students supported with IEPs. So the idea is it comes before you here, and then we would, I'd bring it back to you next meeting for formal approval. Okay, any questions on that? All right. So the last part, okay, you have in front of you paperwork, at least other than Ian and Bruce. The rest of you have paperwork in front of you that we're not going to spend time in the meeting going over. If you can just stay for like 2 minutes after the meeting, we're going to walk you through it. But in the amount of research that Alicia and I have been doing, kind of prepping for board elections, campaigning, WASB's putting out all kinds of things right now of just, hey, did you know, pay attention to. The paper that you have here is something that every board member is supposed to fill out 2 times per year. I don't know enough to know if this has ever been filled out. Some of you have been around would know. I don't know if this is something you guys have normally filled out.
Well, it hasn't been filled out since I've been on the board.
Okay.
It may have been in the past when Randy Rosberg was the superintendent.
I thought I did like the first time I signed up, or when I re-upped, I thought I always signed it.
Yeah, when you campaign.
Yeah.
Yes,
I
so,
think that was it.
You have to report your campaign money.
so I think most of you, so exactly what Marge is saying, when you have basically signed up for, I'm going to run for school board, have likely seen this. What we learned is that whether you are or aren't running, even sitting board members, so all the rest of you, need to fill this out. So Alicia went through and filled in as much common information as possible, because we're trying to make this as simple as possible. Because we have done webinars literally about this paperwork. We have called WASB, you have been on the phone with Hudson, because we want to make sure we do it right, and if it's something we need to have on file, we want to make sure we have it on file the way that we're supposed to. You know, I think this is more relevant, frankly, and this is what WASB said as well, for huge districts where school board members are spending thousands and thousands of dollars on campaigns. I don't believe that to be the case here, but just to make sure, we want to make sure we have the paperwork on file that we need to have on file. So we're not going to do this in the meeting. It should take 2 minutes max when we're done. But we just want to kind of put that on the, I mean, God bless her. She's got prototypes and files and all kinds of things to make sure we have this right. So thank you, because she has done the bulk of the work. She showed it to me the first time, and I was like, I don't even know what this is, so let's start doing some research here. So just more of an FYI that we'll kind of walk you through that at the end of the meeting here. So, and with that, that is all I have.
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to our advanced operations. On the agenda currently are 2 resolution titles, option 1 and option 2. At our last meeting, we voted in favor of option 1 with 1 question on the referendum for our next vote, with the initial resolution to not exceed $22,900,000. And then it goes into 2, resolution providing for a referendum, election on the question of approval of initial resolution. It was asked, and I sent this out to the board, that an option 2 be added in the case of, after additional discussion tonight, us as a board decided to move in a different direction of having 2 questions on the referendum ballot during our April election, which would be to have the first question in the amount not to exceed 6 million, and then the second question with general obligation bonds in the amount not to exceed 16,900,000. So this is action that our board does need to take tonight. We can have more discussion on this, and we had discussion on this at our last meeting. As I said, currently the motion was made at our last meeting to do option 1, but I want to respect everyone, and because this is a big decision and a big thing with our community and our town, to make sure that we know we're going in the right direction and allow people to have that discussion.
So the first one on option 2 is the elementary school.
The first one in option 2 would be the
Work at the elementary school.
Mhm.
And then the number 2 would be the rest of it.
Yes.
Why do you have number 3, I guess? I mean, you wouldn't have that on the ballot.
No, but they both have to be there. You'll see for option 1, it's the exact same thing on number 2. That's not, this isn't ballot information necessarily.
Isn't this splitting it? Option 2?
Yep, but so for option 1 and option 2, they both have the exact same. So for option 1, you can see number 2. For option 2, it's number 3. We have to approve that tonight. That has nothing to do with whether it's 1 or 2 questions.
It's just the wording for the resolution.
Right.
That has to be, it's required to be on the agenda the way it is. And that was part of, even if we had discussion tonight, if we wouldn't have put option 2 like it is on the agenda, we couldn't have approved it if we did change our mind after a discussion, because we didn't have it posted prior on an agenda.
Do you know the tax impacts? Did we really get that?
So we started some work with PMA, and then when it was kind of moving back to, we're not sure if it's going to be 1 questions or 2, we kind of told them to wait, with the understanding that, you know, their perception is, you know, unless something crazy happens with interest rates, which they don't anticipate, that it will be no higher and most likely lower, because it's a lower dollar amount. So that's as much as we did. I basically pushed pause, waiting for this meeting so I can bring back to them, here's exactly what we're doing, and now help us build the model.
No higher. So the last, when we did the referendum in the fall, it was a higher amount for the first question, and that was only $4 per 100,000.
Mm-hmm.
So are you saying that the cost for this, whether it's one question or two, will probably be around the same, $4 per 100,000?
Yep, so PMA said you can anticipate most likely it wouldn't be higher, that it would be lower, and in the same ballpark-ish, but they didn't have all the information in
Right.
terms of interest rates and things like that, because frankly, I told them to wait. I said, let's not go any further until we know for sure, are we dealing with one or two questions? So, you know, their belief is that this will be ballpark/lower.
And that $4 was regarding the 22.9.
Well,
full
that
amount.
$4 was more than 22.9.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Could be slightly less.
Huh?
Could be slightly less than $4.
Yeah.
But then there was also talk when we mentioned if it was divided into two questions, and the first question was the 6 million, that how it would reflect, would almost reflect as though it wouldn't be this way, but in the eyes of how much are you paying, it would really look to taxpayers as they're not paying anything.
Mm-hmm.
Or almost reduction.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Right.
That's just what they have a hard time understanding how to.
So the reason I asked Lacey to get some information on how it would be worded, I did not ask for it to be on the agenda, I just asked for the wording, so that we didn't have a delay in moving forward. This resolution has to be approved a minimum of 70 days before the election. So we have until like January 25th or January 26th. I strongly support everything in this referendum. However, there's going to be another referendum question on the ballot, April 4th as well. St. Croix County is going to referendum for a operational increase of more than $3.5 million to be added every year going forward if it passes to their budget above the revenue cap. Also, we know from our school perceptions report that there's strong support in the community for the elementary maintenance. And we absolutely have to have that. We're getting bills every month for what my father-in-law would say was willy wire and duct taping things together just to keep it going. And we have strong support in the community for it. The school perceptions report said it was too close to call for 22 million. And we're at 22.9. I am hopeful that our community will see what we did in reducing to make this a lower amount than what we asked for the first time. And if they do see that and they agree with it, they can pass it as two questions just as easily as one. And the question that I've been asked by community members is, if you're putting this all in one question, do you really need the money for the elementary school? Because if you really needed the money for the elementary school, wouldn't you do it separately? So whatever the board decides, I will support, absolutely. But is it a gamble you're willing to take?
I would say it's all absolutely needed.
I understand, and I
You agree?
agree. But we can limp by but not without the elementary funds. We can't do the maintenance on the $6 million, we can't do it.
That's a complete replacement. What was the original amount to fix what was there? It was about 50,000, wasn't it?
Some of the HVAC. Not, so it didn't encompass like playground, all that kind of stuff, but the needed, the HVAC, I guess.
There was a lot in
I recognize what Lori's saying, I think with that elementary school. I think one of the things that really is holding me to one question is kind of what Ian said, I think, but also I think some of the misconceptions that came out of 2 questions the last referendum. And I think some of the, even how you're saying like, oh, well, they don't need these things if they need one, but I think that there was just, I mean, remember we're sitting in a volleyball game with some of the referendum, it's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna vote for question 2 and not question 1. I just think, 1, I agree, I mean, I've thought long and hard, Lori, and I totally, I recognize what you're saying, I think those are all really good points. But I also go back to when Shannon held informational sessions, and there's 15 people to really learn about those things, having something more clear cut, if people don't do their research and don't do that, that's what's holding me to one question. And I've gone like, are you willing to take that risk? And I've thought about that. So I completely respect what you're saying. I think those points, but I look at the last referendum and I look at how many people really informed themselves and really had all the information, and just look at how it looks on paper versus 1 question or 2 question, and that's what I keep going back to. But I will also go with, if the board changes, I mean, I think, as Lori said, I am behind this referendum either way, and I hope that us as a board can be unified as moving forward in any way, so
Yeah,
I would be comfortable with
I
what
hear
the
what-
majority thinks.
I hear what you're saying, Lori, and I actually kind of agree with you. I just hesitate on 2 questions because I think it's the optics of this is gonna actually put money back in your pocket, this will cost you a little bit. People didn't understand it last time, they're not gonna understand it now, but, I don't know, 2 questions, maybe actually wouldn't be a bad thing.
I think 2 questions would be, now I thought about it, and I think it would be better. We have to get that elementary one passed. They really have to have something done there.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'm just worried with the 3rd question from the county, now there's 3 questions. That's the only thing.
We don't have any control over that one.
Nope.
Are we on the ballot above them?
Did we get there first?
I guess we've heard from Shannon, we've heard from everybody that there's a need for all the things that the gyms, the fields, the auditorium, the elementary school, there's a need for all of it. It's all a need here. And we've been piecemealing this thing my whole life here. And I agree. I mean, it makes perfect sense. I didn't know about the county thing. I mean, I get it. We need to pass that. But I don't want to, again, settle for something that we're never, ever going to get. We're never going to get an auditorium. And the kids and the staff and the people of this community deserve something more. I just went to Osceola and there's an auditorium. And Johnny goes, "What is that?" I go, "Well, most schools around here have these." I go, "We were trying to get one." I mean, it's right there, right next to the gym. I mean, I get it and I understand. And if our community can't see that yes, we need to help our elementary school update, but we also need to have an auditorium, have a nice place.
For arts and.
I mean, I don't know, I don't wanna say it here, so I mean, I think we really, I don't wanna settle, I didn't wanna settle from the 40 million from day one, but I get it, I didn't wanna settle all the way through, but again, 28 million or 25 million, whatever it was, 25.8, gets us closer to what we want. We took another 3 million off of here, just to say, hey, we're not even trying to upsell this thing, we're trying to make it work as close to what we thought we could get approved as possible, and it's another 3 million of dropping. I mean, we all think it's a need, but I just don't wanna settle for any of this stuff, and I hope everyone understands that. And again, I go back to what Lee, or Dr. Pritzel, or Pritzel, whatever, he said, we have to do our part to make sure that this passes, and I wanna make sure that I do more to make sure that this thing does go through, and I find, our people and say, help me out here, help me understand, we need this. This isn't just a want, so I mean, I have to do more than what was done last time. And I don't want the 2 questions. I really think that'll hurt us getting them both approved, and I don't wanna not have what we need, portion of what we need. Again,
I worry about how the numbers are presented,
yeah, it's just a piece of information.
because we know that.
Talk through.
Any other discussion? This is hard. I mean, I think we all want the same. I truly, I think, but it's, as you said, Laura, or is that a chance we're willing to take? I think this is a gamble. This is something that we all, I think everybody at this table wants it all, but it's, in our eyes, what's our personal opinion on how we think we're gonna get it? And I think everybody has really good points, and how are we gonna move forward with it? So, I guess at this point, if there is no further
So
discussion.
is it either option 1 or option 2, is that what our motion would be?
So we would need a motion to go forward with the resolution title of option 1 or the resolution title of option 2, yes.
I'll just make a motion to go forward with option 1 as presented.
I'll second.
Is there further discussion? Then, I think being, the vote that it is, we'll go ahead and go through a roll call vote. The option or the motion on the table right now is option 1, which would include what is listed as number 1 as 1 question on the referendum for April.
Well, I don't know if there's anything we can do about this now, because unless you take back your motion, I think I want to support whatever the majority of the board votes for. So before we go forward with a formal motion, can we just ask each person, what, do you think we should go with 1 question or 2 questions? And then when we make our motion, it can be unanimous?
Yeah, I'm a 1 question.
Okay. I mean, Lacey, can we do that?
Well, I think so. We're not voting. I'm not going through the
Okay.
roll call vote.
So-
So this is in our discussion right now.
This is our still
discussion. And I
discussion.
think that's a good, I think I've had a lot of thought about this, and my gut's telling me 1.
Okay.
1.
Okay, I was 2, but if the majority is 1, I will go with 1.
Marge, you were 1, but now you've changed, kind of, or you're
Yeah,
willing to
but
do.
it's not the majority, so 1.
Any other I mean, I appreciate that, because I do, and we've had this discussion, we've had, I know this was discussion even months and months ago, like, how do we move forward as a board showing unity that we're all supporting the same thing? And I think that this is really good. I think our hearts are all in the right place as far as where we want our district to go. And I think it's okay, now it's that hard piece as a board, like how are we gonna make that happen?
So the motion is on the table and seconded, and,
Yes. So let's go through now and do a roll call vote. Matt, I always start over here, so Matt, can we start with you? Matt?
Yes.
Ian?
Yes?
Lori?
yes.
Marge?
Yes.
Bruce?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you for that good discussion. And now, moving forward. I was gonna say something else, but we're past our discussion, so I'm gonna keep going. Okay, looking on to board development. I sent to the board a superintendent evaluation tool Friday. I sent another another draft later this afternoon. This isn't necessarily anything that needs to be voted on. However, we did talk at our last meeting that we'd like to then go forward at our last meeting in January to have Shannon's first evaluation in closed session. So I think now, and I didn't link this to the meeting notes just because it's not set in stone, it's open for discussion, it's not necessarily something that we're using at this point. So we're kind of up for feedback, questions, and I kind of did outline. I did initially, right after, it was 2 meetings ago, send this to Lee as far as kind of feedback, because he was with us for our hours of board discussion as far as what we want in our superintendent and what we feel is important as far as evaluation goes. And then at that next meeting, the rough draft was kind of presented from that. And we got the superintendent evaluation tool that was previously used in our district and kind of looked at how could we meld the two and come up with that. I sent to you what I spent time putting together from the 6 standards. The first one I sent to you on Friday did not include, it included 5 and not 6. And then the amended, or another draft that I sent to you had the 6 initial, based solely off of that human resources. When I first reached out to Lee, he was kind of like, be careful when you add in that human resources piece for evaluation. But then looking at the policy, and thank you, Lori, for that, for the kind of superintendent duties and what's listed on our policy, it does kind of list that out, so that was then put back in there. So that's in red, the part that was just added this afternoon. The parts in orange on that are parts that we didn't necessarily come up with Lee, but were added from the first evaluation tool. Some other feedback that he gave that I thought was really just helpful was the superintendent evaluation that was originally used in Somerset had more of a number system, and then those numbers were averaged. And the suggestion was to really steer clear of using numbers and averages, because you don't necessarily say, oh, if you're this number, you get to keep your job. If you're not this number, you don't. I mean, there really isn't any jobs that kind of work on that. And Jody was able to kind of just provide some of a couple other superintendent tools from other districts. I think, in all honesty, what I've seen for other superintendent tools, ours, it has way more detail and information than the examples that I've seen. So I guess feedback. Did everybody get that in email today? Okay.
Looks good.
Yep, I think it looks good too, Ian.
Come on.
There's some typos, but.
I was waiting for it.
Yeah, there are.
But we can fix that.
Okay, all right.
Please send me any typos or anything. That'd help. And also, I think it's really important for us all to note that this isn't something that's set in stone. I mean, we're saying, okay, we're gonna use this for the January evaluation, but I think that this could be a fluid document, and I think sometimes I think people are so, myself, like, well, this covers it all, this is what we have, but this might be changed in June if we decide, hey, look at, like, this is kind of an area that we're not focusing, we're focusing more on this, or this was hard to get evidence for, or hey, we really missed this piece that we should have put in. I mean, I think that this could be an evolving document from time to time.
Caution that we don't want to change it on Shannon at the last minute.
Right, no, I'm more so in advance, but let's say our next meeting, we go through and after that, Shannon's feedback or our feedback was like, this one was really tough for us to know as a board to be, and I think that's a discussion that we've had, to be fair, evaluators ourselves, that these are important things for a superintendent, but how can we as a board, can we really evaluate that? And I think that's where, this is one of the tasks, like going, I'm like, I know we laid it out, and I know what you gave me was laid out, but there was hours of like overthinking just to make sure that us as a board are doing our due diligence, but that we're being fair to I think there was a lot, please note that there was a lot done, because I think this is an important document that you want to make sure that we're doing our job, but we're being fair to Shannon as well. So maybe even it's something to put on after the evaluation, even just for the discussion, like, hey, what were there areas when we were evaluating that were really tough, or that you felt were tough, Shannon, to kind of make sure of that piece.
I think we go through it and when we meet, we bring up some of those, like even like the evaluations. We don't see them, are they happening? It'd be like, right now it'd be unsure because we haven't seen anything, because this is the point we're at, but it'd be, maybe then a conversation with her would change. So I think that'll happen on a few of the items as we go through, or
I think we meet in January too. It'll be helpful for me to get just a better idea now that we maybe have this tool of when we do have kind of the more formal, closed session check-ins, like what are you looking for from me? So right now I'm focusing a lot of my evidence collection on my 3 goals, but certainly I have lots of other pieces of evidence of evaluation of, right? And so I think just for me, just my 2 cents, I've told Lacey a couple times, like, whatever you have in here, great. I will live by it, I'll work through, great. That isn't my concern, it's just I wanna make sure I'm bringing to you in those formal meetings, the evidence that you're looking for, and that I'm eager to share with you, because, I've had lots of things created and kind of saved that I wanna be able to, that always aren't necessarily appropriate here in this forum, but to be able to kind of show you, yep, here's where I've spent a lot of time and energy, and there might be some indicators that just haven't happened yet, or this year may not happen based off of some of the bigger work that's going on. So I'm eager to be able to have that conversation too, just to kind of mutually work through that and be able to share some of the evidence and things and get a better idea of kind of what you're looking for when we have those meetings, so.
Okay. In the meantime, maybe I'll turn on, just after this, turn on comments and turn them off at a point, so then if there is errors or just wording or things that you guys want to, like we've done for the policy committee, to type in there, and then maybe before it's actually like printed and put in and kind of finalized before our next meeting, to kind of send out just a FYI, you guys to take a last look before, then we have it kind of finalized for you. And then I'd like to just make sure that then Jody's given a copy too, to kind of file and to put away. Okay. Then, moving on, topics for action. A is open. Was there an A?
I'll make a motion to approve 11A, 1 and 2.
Yeah, was there an
That's different on,
It was we
Typo.
realized it was a
Okay.
typo, yeah.
Okay.
There was nothing
because
erased,
on
it
the
just, yeah.
digital version, there's no A.
Yeah.
Well, there is a A, there's no B. Okay,
Yeah.
okay, sorry. What was your motion?
To approve 11A, 1 and 2.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Thank you that we now have a band teacher at the middle school.
I
That's
have
awesome.
a comment is, I understand the difficulties in hiring teachers at this time. And I am confident that we are providing these new employees the support they need to take on these immense jobs.
Okay, discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Once around the table. Matt, I started with the last one, I'll start with you again.
I have nothing.
I just wanted, the listening session, Alicia did send out, thank you, Alicia, and there is currently no one signed up for January, so if you haven't signed up for one yet, it'd be greatly appreciated to just put your name in, otherwise, everybody's been wonderful about the day of just filling in.
I can be
Yeah.
here that day.
So I'm
if
sure, well,
necessary.
and that's why I think people, but if you haven't done one yet, awesome if you can, otherwise I could be here, Lori could be here, one of us can be here. Somebody can make it work, so. Bruce?
I think they already said it, but a little bit, just that virtual day, I think it was better than what my son had last year. It was great. He had 2 meets during the day, which is just good for kids to start learning, because I'm on 4 different calls today that are all, virtual meetings. So have those kids learn that is just something that was good to see. So I think it was worthwhile. So I'm glad they were able to do it and not go to school in July or June.
March?
Thanks to Ian and Bruce for running again. Otherwise, I don't have anything else.
Thank you. Lori?
I think I'm good, thanks.
Ian?
Thank all the presenters tonight.
Oh.
They did a great job. Amber's presentation was pretty cute.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. Would it be possible, could we link those pictures that Amber had to the agenda? And
I think it's on there.
Oh,
Deep.
it wasn't
Yeah.
earlier, I think.
Yeah,
it's-
And can you also link Tim's presentation? And would it be appropriate to link Officer Jarrett's
Sure.
document? I mean, if it's okay, it would
Yeah.
be nice if those
Yeah.
could be linked to the agenda. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved. Motion to adjourn. Second.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Meeting is adjourned at 7:23.